Hello and welcome. This is the final episode of Ruth Stout because it's basically just covering over the method and its final results. The main question is, was it worth it? Definitely yes, for a couple different reasons, and they weren't exactly expected. The first and foremost success was in this field here was pure grass with couch grass and creeping buttercup mixed up in it all. For the basis of no preparation, nothing done, just hay laid on top, so it was really easy. The hay was a byproduct of this field when I first got it, so it cost me nothing. Therefore, from an input sort of variation, it was easy. It kept the weeds down very nicely right the way through the summer, subdued all that couch grass and rotten, and it's a real bonus to have a piece of land where you've approached it in a no dig preparation, so there's no real massive effort in preparing the soil, and then gaining an area that has beaten the weeds until next year in the short term. Steve Digwell has assured me that one of the negatives of doing this is that basically what I'll have now is a field of weed seed, and I actually think he's right. But if I've exchanged established weeds like couch grass and not bindweed and creeping buttercups for seedlings, I think that's a good swap. And actually this area here, this whole area, is going to be destined to be fruit bushes, raspberries, rhubarb, that sort of thing. You will notice that the bottom half is having the hay pushed down there. So am I going to do it next year? Hell yeah. The reason being is I actually did get pretty good results out of the crops that I planted. There were problems. The biggest problem was voles. These are a couple tubers that I found in amongst the hay. These are the seed potatoes that were disturbed by voles and never allowed to grow, because basically the voles moved around it into just hay. These weren't able to grow into anything, and so that they're still here ready to grow for next year. I'm not going to, of course, but you get the idea that the voles had a heavy toll on seed potatoes. I reckon somewhere in the region of 30 to 40% negative yield through displaced potatoes. The voles also hit the crop as it was maturing, but not to a huge degree. I reckon I lost perhaps 10% of the edge of crop to gnawing the tubers. Annoyingly, it was always on the bigger tubers, which is just typical. But overall, the voles did have a heavy effect on this land here. Surprisingly, slugs didn't damage the crop as much. I was expecting the slugs to be a real pain in the butt, but actually they weren't so bad. So that was a minor success, I guess. The sweet corn struggled with early slug damage. Squashes and sunflowers were absolutely annihilated by slugs. So I feel that the Ruth Stout method in the UK climate is too impacted by slug damage. I'm going to try a couple of things again. I want to try overwintering onions. I do want to try that because I think they'll suit the Ruth Stout method lovely. So that's on the agenda. I'm definitely going to have potatoes down here again, and my modified Ruth Stout in the squash area has been an outstanding success. What that was is underneath the tarps when they went down, there was a load of dried grass and hay underneath, trapped underneath those, and by lawn mowing that residue up to get rid of that off the crop area, I then had very fine, not grass, not hay, somewhere in between, and that as a suppressant over the top of the squash area has worked really well, so well that that will be copied again. Worked well, and it is important to note that the beds and the Ruth Stout method had no watering, and when I harvested these potatoes there was a fair amount of dampness already in the soil, even though we haven't had meaningful rain for a couple months now. So there is definite reasons why the whole idea of Ruth Stout method definitely works in a dry year. I dare say we'll have a normal year next year and it'll be wet, and I'll see how that harvest turns out. But that's another story for another year. And one of the biggest lessons is that it all depends on your climate, your soil, and the weather that you receive. One of the big benefits was how easy the harvesting was. No backbreaking work, just down your hands and knees and pull the potatoes aside. This is a particularly good example because it was the very last crop I had to yield. Different varieties produce different results. On the left is Kestrel, a second early, produced really good results. But on the right, the reds are Desiree, a main crop. Again, very good yields. So it wasn't exclusive to the early types. The King Edwards on the left here were completely different though. They really did not like this method in the slightest. The roosters on the right, they did. So this old variety was a waste of time, a waste of money, a waste of space. We'll not be doing that again. The Morris Pipers much very similar as well. These are roosters. They did get hit by the rodents. This video making malarkey is all great, but it's not very good when you find out that you've forgotten to record the end of a video. So I'm up nice and early this morning, next day from the previous footage. Just to sum up what my plans are going forward for the Ruth Stout method. This lot that's behind me will become the Ruth Stout second phase for 26. Potatoes again, new ground, and as I mentioned, some onions as well. I am going to do things slightly different. I should have more compost available next year, so instead of just doing hay over soil, I should be able to start the potatoes off in a certain amount of compost. I'm reasonably confident that that will succeed. That's my hope and that's my dream for next year. But on a lovely sunny August day, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.